A solitary fisherman encounters a lone child out at sea and becomes even more alarmed upon discovering how the child came to be there. Rui, a solitary fisherman, wakes up to another day of fishing out at sea. As Rui prepares, thoughts about the fate of the fish and the daily hardships weigh on his mind. Fishing is not just a means of survival for him. It's a constant battle against loneliness and the uncertainties of the sea. His boat, more than just a mode of transportation, is his home, marked by the storms it has weathered over the years. As he casts his net into the sea, Rui wonders where the fish, his daily sustenance, might be. Yet something unexpected catches his attention. A vague shape drifts in the distance against the ocean horizon. Rui furrows his brow, eyes fixed on the solitary figure. A mix of curiosity and concern grows within him. "I must be hallucinating," he murmurs. But something prevents him from dismissing it, and he approaches cautiously. As he draws nearer, the outlines of a life raft become clearer. A solitary point of hope or despair amidst the vast blue waters. His heart beats faster. A blend of fear and compassion drives him to act. Rui steers his vessel towards the raft, and what he finds inside makes his body tremble, not from cold, but from shock and surprise. A boy, weak and injured, breathing laboriously, with hair matted by salt water and visible wounds on his forehead and limbs. For a moment, Rui is motionless, unable to comprehend the scene before his eyes. How had this small being ended up here, alone on a raft in the middle of the sea? The urgency of the situation soon snaps him out of his paralysis. The sight of the boy's wounds and labored breathing leaves him stunned. He struggles to grasp how this child came to be adrift and injured. A shiver runs down Rui's spine as he watches the young being before him on the solitary raft, lost in the vast sea. The scene is surreal and unexpected. He questions how such a fragile and vulnerable child ended up in this desperate situation. The boy seems to be in shock, his half-opened eyes revealing a mixture of pain and confusion. Rui approaches slowly, as if afraid of startling the child, and soon notices the visible wounds on the child's arms and legs. Rui's heart sinks at the pallor of the child's face and the barely perceptible breathing. As he tries to process what is before him, Rui desperately searches for clues to understand how this boy ended up there. The salty wind and the sounds of waves hitting the raft echo in his ears, contrasting with the boy's disturbing silence. He finds himself consumed by a mix of concern and curiosity. Quickly, Rui composes himself and takes action. He checks his own clothing for anything that might help calm the boy or cover his wounds. Time seems like an enemy, as every second counts to save this child. Rui acts swiftly, pulling the raft closer and carefully bringing the boy onto his own vessel. As he does so, a series of unanswered questions echo in his mind. Who could this boy be? Where did he come from, and what could have happened to leave him adrift, injured, in these dangerous open waters? Observing the boy of around 8 years old, Rui notices cracked lips from dehydration and wounds that mark his skin, silent witnesses to a struggle for survival. In the days that follow, Rui dedicates himself to caring for the unconscious boy. He offers fresh water in small sips and gently cleans his wounds with a little fresh water remaining. What happened to you, boy?" he asks aloud, while applying a damp cloth to the boy's forehead in hopes of easing his discomfort. There is no response, only shared silence interrupted by the sound of the sea against the boat's hull. On the morning of the third day, a cry breaks the silence. A mommy, the weak but desperate voice awakens Rui, who was sleeping on the deck between fishing breaks. He rushes inside the vessel and finds the boy awake, eyes wide with terror as if still trapped in a nightmare from which he couldn't escape. In the calmest voice possible, Rui tries to reassure the boy, saying, "It's okay. You're safe now. I found you floating and brought you here. You're safe." He hopes his words bring some comfort, that the gentle touch on his shoulder might alleviate the evident fear in the child's eyes. My mom," the boy murmurs, his voice faltering. "Where is she?" Rui hesitates for a moment, preparing himself to tell the most difficult part of the story. He sits beside David and begins to recount how he found him. "You were found on the raft, but unfortunately, there was no one else." The boy is visibly frightened, his body tense, eyes frantically searching for something familiar, something to make sense of a world suddenly turned upside down. He closes his eyes for a moment, absorbing the emotional blow. Fragmented memories of the tragedy begin to return to his mind, and he is overwhelmed by a devastating mix of sadness and gratitude for being alive. Rui asks again, this time more gently, hoping the boy might somehow share his story. But the trauma is too deep, the words lost amid fear and confusion, and the boy only cries, sobbing softly. His fragile body trembles as the fisherman, helpless but determined to help, stays by his side. "It's okay, calm down. You don't need to say anything now. Just rest," he reassures. At this moment, Rui realizes that unraveling the mystery behind the boy's presence in the middle of the sea is just beginning. He is willing to do everything in his power to protect him and perhaps restore his hope. "I'll make you some hot chocolate," Rui announces, heading out to prepare the drink. When he returns, he watches the boy finish the hot chocolate, eyes fixed on the empty cup, as if it holds the answers to the flood of emotions overwhelming him. Rui sighs deeply, knowing that the road ahead will be long and challenging. He encourages the boy again to share his story, and it eventually unfolds. The boy introduces himself as David. "We were on a plane. It crashed," David says with a trembling voice, revealing the weight of the trauma he carries. The fisherman's eyes widen in surprise. "A plane? You were on a plane that crashed into the sea?" Disbelief colors his words, but the seriousness in David's gaze dispels any doubt. Rui is touched by the boy's story, by his mother's courageous account, and by the swift brutality of the loss he has faced. David's words about the incident, his mother's heroism, leave Rui speechless. The magnitude of the tragedy that brought their fates together in an unlikely encounter at sea weighs heavily on him, a responsibility that the humble fisherman never imagined bearing. As the sun sets, Rui makes a resolute decision. "We will find the crash site," he declares more to himself than to David. "I don't know what we will find, but we will go there. Your mother gave you a chance. Let's honor her." David's mother, a woman of unwavering courage and love, sacrificed her own life to ensure her son's safety on the raft. The fisherman Rui, hearing this poignant story directly from young David's lips, feels deeply moved and inspired by the mother's dedication and bravery. David recalls the moments of terror aboard the plane, the panicked passengers, and the events that culminated in the devastating crash. He recounts how his mother, even faced with imminent tragedy, remained steadfast in her determination to protect her son at any cost. With tears in his eyes, David describes how his mother placed him in the small life raft, knowing there was no room for her. He remembers her final words, a plea for him to be strong and a declaration of unconditional love. These memories haunt David, but they also fill him with profound respect and gratitude for his mother's courage. Rui, listening to every word, feels the pain and admiration in the young man's account. He imagines the emotional intensity that David experienced during those harrowing moments. As David shares this touching story, Rui cannot help but reflect on the selfless sacrifice of David's mother. He finds himself inspired by the human capacity to face the unimaginable in the name of love for a child. Rui listens attentively, offering silent support and understanding as David expresses his feelings and recounts his story in a safe and nurturing environment. Rui's determination to confront the unknown in search of answers may ignite a small spark of hope in David's heart. Together, under the vast starry sky, they sail in search of the truth, guided by the memory of a woman who made the ultimate sacrifice out of love. Rui adjusts the course of his boat, guided by intuition of where he saw David arrive on the raft. The vast and unpredictable sea seems to guard its secrets with a somber calm. As they approach the location Rui believes to be the crash site, a sense of stillness envelopes him, a premonition that he is about to discover something terrible. When they finally arrive, The scene unfolding before their eyes is one of pure desolation. Debris fragments float amidst an oil slick that stains the sea's surface, a silent testament to the catastrophe that occurred there. With a heavy heart, Rui mentally notes down the exact coordinates, still trying to grasp the extent of the disaster. Then, the possible explanation for the absence of fish where he was fishing dawns on him. They fled because of the crash, he murmurs to himself, with an added weight on his heart. Upon returning to solid ground, Rui is determined to share the information he has gathered. It was only upon reaching shore that he learned of the crash through local accounts and the news that had begun to circulate. He had been at sea with limited communication, unaware of the tragedy of the missing plane 10 days prior. As he assimilates the information and the impact of the crash, Rui feels a growing urgency to share the discoveries he made during his time at sea. He realizes he holds crucial information that could shed light on the fate of the passengers and crew of the missing plane. Without hesitation, Rui heads to the Coast Guard, providing the coordinates of the crash site. The officers, surprised by the accuracy of the information, act immediately, initiating a series of events that begin to reveal how it all unfolded. He feels a sense of responsibility and purpose in sharing his findings, knowing that his actions could have a significant impact on the ongoing search and investigation. As Rui interacts with the authorities, he expresses a mix of emotions, from sadness over the tragedy to a renewed determination to help in any way he can. He commits to fully collaborate with rescue efforts and investigations, aware of the critical role he can play in seeking answers and aiding in the healing process for affected families. The harsh reality surfaces. The plane was targeted by terrorists in a hijacking that culminated in a devastating explosion. However, David and his mother, seated in the rear of the plane, miraculously survived, managing to swim to a life raft. The news of the crash echoes like a disturbing revelation for Rui. He feels overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, from disbelief to deep compassion for the victims and their families. For Rui, returning to solid ground represents more than just the end of a journey at sea. It's a moment of transition, where he finds himself involved in events larger than he imagined. His experience at sea has transformed him, not just as a fisherman, but as an unexpected link in a larger story of tragedy and hope. As he concludes his interactions with the authorities, Rui feels a sense of relief mixed with a feeling of duty fulfilled. He knows that his journey alongside David and his accidental discovery on the life raft have become part of something much bigger than himself. For David, what initially seemed like temporary salvation turned into a nightmare when they realized the life raft was too small for both him and his mother. Without hesitation, she sacrificed herself to ensure her son's safety. This act leaves deep scars on David. Rui listens to the story of the crash and David's solitary struggle, adrift for days, facing the challenges of survival. The resigned boy to his bleak fate floating in the vast ocean could never have imagined the providential rescue he would find in the Fisherman, and neither of them, especially Rui, could have predicted the events that followed. Choosing to save young David and provide the coordinates to the authorities would not only offer closure to the families of the crash victims, but also change the course of Rui's life. As rescue teams mobilize based on the information provided, Rui and David are taken to the hospital. The sterile white light bathes the corridors as Rui stands beside the bed where David rests, watching him sleep peacefully in a safe environment. David's vision finally finding some peace after the tumultuous events that led him there brings an inner calm to Rui. A sense of accomplishment warms his heart. Rui's heart races as David's father finally arrives at the hospital. He watches from afar, allowing the emotional scene to unfold before his eyes. The hurried footsteps and anguished voice of the father echo through the hospital corridor, desperation and hope etched on his face. Rui witnesses the moment when David's father finds his son. He sees agony and relief blend on the man's face as their eyes meet. Desperation turns into uncontained joy as the father rushes toward David, arms open wide in an embrace that seems to hold all the gratitude and accumulated love from days of anguish. The fisherman observes the scene with a mix of emotions. He feels a twinge of joy for having played a part in reuniting this family, but also a sense of intrusion, witnessing such an intimate and personal moment between father and son. Rui notices how David clings to his father, eyes brimming with restrained emotion. He imagines the whirlwind of thoughts and feelings passing through the boy's mind at that moment. As father and son embrace, Rui feels grateful to have been part of this story. He realizes how a simple act of compassion can have such a profound impact on the lives of those around him. As Rui discreetly steps away to allow father and son to enjoy their special moment together, he can't help but reflect on the power of love and human connection. The experience he shared with David has changed something within him, awakening a new understanding of the importance of caring for one another, even amidst adversity. While the hospital continues its daily routine around them, Rui remains silent, watching the touching scene unfold before his eyes. He feels privileged to have been part of this tale of resilience and hope, if only for a brief moment. Rui can't help but ponder what the future holds for David and his father. He hopes this reunion marks the beginning of a story of healing and renewal for them both. The fisherman knows his own life has also been touched by this experience and commits to carrying forward the lessons learned. Rui understands this is just one chapter in David and his father's story. As he processes everything he has learned and shared, Rui hopes that his actions have in some way contributed to bringing answers and comfort to the victims' families. He prepares to continue his life, aware that this experience has left a mark on his personal and emotional life. He is touched by the gratitude expressed by David's father upon finding him in the hospital. The man's eyes show relief mixed with deep gratitude, as if Rui were a savior sent in a moment of despair. However, when David's father mentions rewards or gestures of thanks, Rui kindly declines. For Rui, the connection he shares with David and his family goes beyond any material compensation. He feels a special bond with the boy and an emotional responsibility for his safety and well-being. Refusing rewards is a decision made not out of pride, but out of respect for the bond that has formed between them. As he watches David and his father interact, Rui reflects on the true meaning of generosity and altruism. He sees how acts of compassion and solidarity can transcend social and economic barriers, creating genuine bonds based on empathy and shared humanity. By refusing any form of reward, Rui conveys a powerful message that the true value lies in human connection and the ability to help each other in times of need. He believes that what truly matters is the positive impact we can have on others' lives, regardless of any material compensation. While David's father insists with gratitude, Rui maintains his position with kindness and firmness. He expresses satisfaction in seeing David recover and finds comfort in knowing that he did the right thing by acting quickly to save the boy. This emotional exchange between Rui and David's father highlights the depth of human connection that developed amidst tragedy and rescue. Rui feels a sense of accomplishment and purpose in knowing that his intervention made a significant difference in someone else's life, something that goes far beyond any material reward. As David's father thanks once again, Rui smiles with humility and warmth. He understands that the true gift lies in the opportunity to be an agent of positive change in someone's life, a gift that cannot be measured in material terms, but rather in shared experiences and touched hearts. As the conversation draws to a close, Rui feels a sense of gratitude and inner peace. He knows that his path crossed with David's for a greater reason and hopes this experience leaves a lasting mark not only on their lives, but also on the lives of families who lost their loved ones in the tragedy. For Rui, the real treasure is the ability to make a difference in someone else's life, even if it means foregoing recognition or rewards. He bids farewell to David's father with a strong embrace and a warm handshake and a silent promise to always be there if they need him again. As he walks away from the hospital, Rui feels a renewed sense of gratitude and purpose. He knows this experience has changed him in profound ways and will continue to inspire him to be a positive force in the world around him, regardless of circumstances. This sincere exchange between Rui and David's father is a powerful reminder of how compassion and mutual care can create lasting bonds of love and solidarity. Rui is grateful to have been part of this path of hope and healing, an experience that will remind him of the importance of being there for others in life's most difficult moments. Tell me here in the comments what you would do if you found a child alone at sea. And don't forget to leave your like. Until the next video.